3 weeks before the crash, a man named Daniel Voss mailed sealed envelopes to 11 different people, predicting, to the exact calendar day, the largest financial collapse his country had seen in 40 years. Every single detail was correct. The date, the sequence, the magnitude, even the name of the first institution to fall. On the morning his prediction came true, Daniel Voss was gone. His apartment was empty. His files had vanished. And not one of those 11 people ever spoke his name publicly again. Part 1, The Analyst Nobody Listened to. It starts, like most tragedies, with someone being ignored. Daniel Voss was not a celebrity. He was not a senator, not a billionaire, not a man with a television slot and a book deal. He was a mid-level financial analyst working for a private consultancy in a grey office building. Quiet. Meticulous. Known among colleagues for filling legal pads with calculations nobody else bothered to read. In the 8 months before the crash, something shifted in him. Co-workers noticed it first. He started arriving earlier, staying later. The legal pads multiplied. He stopped joining them for lunch. When they asked why, he said the same thing every time. I'm trying to understand something that shouldn't be possible. Nobody pressed him on it. Analysts say strange things. Numbers do strange things to people who stare at them long enough. They assumed burnout. They moved on. But Daniel wasn't burning out. He was building something. Over those 8 months, he had been quietly pulling public financial data, debt ratios, derivative exposure, overnight lending patterns, and running his own models. Unofficial models. The kind that no firm would sanction because they led to conclusions that made clients nervous. And his models were pointing at a specific date. Not a range. Not a quarter. A specific day. He checked it again. And again. Changed the variables. Rebuilt the model from scratch. The date kept appearing like a splinter in the math, refusing to move. That was when he started writing the letters. Part TWO, 11 envelopes he mailed the first one 6 weeks before the date. Inside each sealed envelope was a 22-page document. Typed. Single-spaced. Structured like a legal brief. It named the institutions most exposed. It described the triggering mechanism in forensic detail. It listed, in order, the sequence of failures that would follow. And at the top of page 1, underlined twice, was a date. He sent them to journalists. To a regulator. To 2 academics he had corresponded with years earlier. To a former colleague now working inside one of the institutions he had named. The responses he received, the ones he received, were polite. Dismissive. One journalist replied saying it was an interesting theoretical scenario. One academic called it alarmist modeling. The regulator never replied at all. His former colleague called him on the phone. That phone call lasted for minutes. Daniel never disclosed what was said. But after it ended, a neighbor reported hearing him pacing his apartment for the better part of 3 hours. The next morning, he sent 3 more envelopes. Here is what nobody knew yet: one of those envelopes contained something more than the report. Something he had added at the last minute. Something that would only make sense weeks later, after he was gone. But we'll get to that. Part 3. The date arrives on the morning of the date Daniel Voss had written at the top of 11 documents. The markets open normally. For 47 minutes, everything was fine. Then the first institution began to wobble. By midday it had fallen. By evening, 2 more had followed. By the end of the week, the word collapse was no longer theoretical. It was on every front page. It was the word people were using on the street. Every single detail matched. The sequence. The names. The magnitude. The date. The people who had received those envelopes now had a choice to make. Most of them said nothing. Some of them quietly filed the documents away. One of them, we do not know which one, reportedly made a phone call the night the crash began. A call that lasted less than 2 minutes. And on the morning after the crash broke wide open, a neighbor knocked on Daniel Voss's door to check on him, because she had heard nothing from his apartment in 18 hours, which was unusual. The door was unlocked. Inside, no Daniel. No legal pads. No files. No laptop. His coffee cup was on the counter, still holding the faint ring of a morning drink. His coat was on the hook by the door. His car was in the lot. But Daniel Voss was gone. Part 4, What the investigation found, and what IT didn't. Police opened a missing persons file within 48 hours. Standard procedure. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. No history of mental illness on record. No flagged financial distress. His accounts had not been touched. Interviews with the 11 recipients of his envelope turned up almost nothing useful. Most denied receiving anything significant. 2 said they could not locate the documents. 1 said, and this detail appears only in a single investigator's handwritten notes, never in the official file, that their copy had arrived with a page missing. A page that was not missing from any other copy. That investigator submitted a supplementary report requesting access to the financial regulator's correspondence records. The request was denied. His supplementary report was removed from the official file. He noticed only because he had kept a carbon copy. When asked about it later, the department cited an administrative filing error. And here is the detail that changes everything. 3 months after Daniel disappeared, a researcher going through publicly available financial communications records found a reference, a single-line reference, to an internal memo flagging an unsolicited external analysis of systemic risk, dated 4 weeks before the crash. It had been logged. Read. And marked, no further action required. Someone in that building had read Daniel's work. Understood it. And decided to do nothing. Part 5, the missing page. Go back to that envelope. The one with the missing page. Daniel had added something at the last minute to 3 specific envelopes. The recipients of the other 8 never mentioned a missing page, because their copies never had it. He had chosen 3 people deliberately. We don't know why those 3. We don't know what the criteria was. But investigators who studied his work patterns later theorized that the missing page wasn't part of the report at all. It was something else. Instructions, perhaps. Or evidence. Or a name. The recipient who mentioned the missing page to that one investigator went silent immediately after. Refused further contact. Moved cities within 4 months. We do not know what was on that page. We may never know. But consider what we do know. A man predicted a catastrophic collapse with impossible precision, documented everything, attempted to warn the people with the power to act, and vanished the moment history proved him right. No body was ever found. No credible sighting was ever verified. The case remains officially open and practically dormant. The 11 envelopes have never been collectively produced or examined. The internal memo was quietly buried under administrative language. And somewhere out there, in a filing cabinet, a drawer, or a memory someone is still choosing to protect, is a page that at least one person read, and then decided to make disappear. Here is the question that stays with me long after the files close. Daniel Voss was right about everything he put on paper. Everything he predicted correctly. So ask yourself, when someone that precise decides to disappear, did they run from something? Or did they run toward something they knew was already coming? Think about that. If you want more cases the headlines buried, subscribe to Nocturne Files. A new file opens every week. And some of them are still open.